morning. It's Julie Bogart from Brave Writer, and I'm so happy to be with you this morning and back on track with our live Gracious Space daily readings. It feels really, really good to have the community back together. I was gone for 2 weeks, but now I'm here all the way in till the end of the year, and we are making our way through this book. And this is what the book looks like, and you can get your own copy. I posted a link in the comment part of this video. And what you might not know is that the first 5 days of this book are available for free. So if you click on that link, you can go download those 5 days and have a sense of what some of the other readings are. Of course, you can listen to all the replays of the broadcasts that I've done. Day 35, stay the course. That big decision you made, stick with it. It takes time for everyone to settle in, to adapt, to understand the new contours of this unfolding change. The emotional highs, and particularly the lows, are part of the movement of this new thing. This stiff unfamiliarity is temporary, like shoes that need to be worn so the leather straps soften and the soles mold to your particular feet. Sometimes there are blisters and sore toes along the way, but eventually the fit becomes right. In the meantime, while everyone gets familiar with the new reality, stay the course. The tone of your home is set by you. I know how challenging that is. It's all on you, the mood, the energetic field you create. Your family looks to you to know if they should worry or trust, if they can be freely happy or ought to be careworn and subdued. It's exhausting to lead with joy and alacrity. Self-doubt is the most natural part of the breaking in process during the new thing transition. While you lead, you also monitor. You can't help it. The undulating emotions are feedback that can at once validate your decision and then a day later shoot it in the heart. Beware. Wait 48 hours before making adjustments. Allow the waves of happy and sad to subside before evaluating each aspect of the new thing. Sometimes emotion is vented and over. Give the new thing a real chance to become a way of life, not just a test run. Invest. Believe. You can tweak, make it your own, do it your way, adapt it to your particular situation. But don't give up too easily. Trust that your hunch was a good one and live into it. Stay the course a little while longer and see what happens. Quote of the day. Oh, I love this. I need to save it for September. Some big changes planned for next year's homeschool. Jennifer Briesman. Sustaining thought. It's wise to take on new things slowly, and it's also wise not to abandon them quickly. Establish, test, try, decide. So you know what I'm talking about, don't you? You heard about that sparkly new curriculum or organization or class or membership or whatever, and you think, I want to try that. You hear about a philosophy or you see a family magically living the life you always dreamed of, and you think, that should work for us. And then you do all the research and you actually catalyze energy in yourself to take this big, bold risk, whatever it is, casting off a product or bringing one in. And you suddenly do what I call letting go of the side of the pool. I mean, you're in the pool, but now you're thinking about swimming out into the deep end, right? You're going to let go of the side and you're going to go swim. And you do it. And suddenly you're out there and you're like, oh my gosh, where is this side of the pool? How do I get back to safety? My arms are tired and I'm panicking and I'm hyperventilating and I'm swimming really, really hard and I'm using all this energy. You know you can float, right? You can just flip over on your back and let your body just rest on the top of the water. Just lay there for a few minutes. Allow the thing that you brought in to live and move and have its being. Understand its contours. Is it possible that struggle is a part of that journey? Not all new practices are immediately comfortable. So let's take some examples, shall we? You've decided to let go. We're going to stick with writing because it's my world. You're going to let go of the program that teaches you rigorous assignments, how to write specific genres, and you're going to use copywork and dictation and free writing. And you're not going to produce anything finished for a whole semester because Julie said it was okay to live that way. And the first multiple free writes you read are just abysmal, at least in your mind. They don't have any of the sparkle, the great vocabulary, the imagination you were promised. They don't seem to reveal that your child is discovering writing to be a happy experience. You've got children complaining that they don't know what to say because they don't know how to spell it, and you keep promising them it's okay if they misspell it, and they keep not believing you. Has that happened for some of you? Well, yeah. Because if up to this point, everything you've done has been about the execution of writing accuracy, freedom to explore writing feels like swimming to the deep end of the pool without anything to grab onto. You don't have your little floaties. You don't have the side of the pool. You're not in a lane racing from end to end. Nobody's timing you. No one's evaluating your strokes. You're told to just go out and explore the water. And you're like, okay, I'm in the water, but like, I can't tell if I'm swimming. Shouldn't I look like I'm swimming? But it's okay. Because you were told to enjoy the water, not to swim, not to turn the pool into a competitive race for a wall. You were told it's okay if you do a little somersault in the water, splash a bit, bounce your body up and down, dive to the bottom, dive to the top, raise your hands, lower your hands, do a little pirouette. Those were all allowed. This wasn't a competition where you're licking jello out of your hands before you do the breaststroke for 50 meters. This is something else. This is getting comfortable with the water. This is allowing for a change. But it's going to feel weird if you're used to showing up every Saturday morning for a meet at 5 in the morning, right? So if you think about the way that you spend time, in whatever that philosophy is that you are just bringing in, allow yourself to feel what it feels like. You know, when I buy a new tool, I would buy a math book or a piece of curriculum a child wanted. For example, Katrin wanted Rosetta Stone for Chinese. Found out later it's because she couldn't read English and she thought it would be easier to learn Chinese characters. I did not know that until she was like 16. But the point is, she wanted that program. And today she's a linguistics major who loves languages. So it isn't far off that she was already curious about language. So we bought it. And I found it incredibly frustrating. I thought if she had just picked French, I could really help her because I can read French and I can speak it. I thought even if she had picked Italian, I would recognize the letters and I understand Romance languages and we could work with that. If she had even picked Arabic, at least I know the Arabic alphabet and I spoke a dialect of Arabic for, 8 years of my life. So part of me was like, why Chinese? I don't even know what to do with this. I can't read these characters and they're posting characters on the screen and in the little book and all we're doing is this audio listening. But you know what? I just had to let go of the side of the pool. She was interested in Chinese and I allowed her to just wear the little headsets and learn the phrases, and then I'd come over and put on the headsets and learn the phrases, and I had to give up my goal that she was ever going to be fluent in Chinese and just see where the journey of this $300 investment took us. And it didn't take us very far in Chinese. But like I said, today she's a linguistics major. She studied French a little bit with us. She learned Greek with me because she was so interested. In fact, the second program we bought was Greek. And that one she did. She did 2 or 3 levels of it. And today she speaks French, German, a little Spanish, English, and a little tiny bit of Korean. And Hindi. So you don't know where these things are going to go. You want to give yourself permission to trust a hunch and to follow it up and to not have it match your imagined outcome when you first purchased it. And that could be true all across the board, whether it's a math book, an English program, a history program, a novel you're reading. But let's look at a biggie. What about this idea of unschooling? How many of you have been seduced, like I was, by the vision of natural learning where you were basically just sort of adjacent to the learning experience? Your children were just so self-directed and delighted. They woke up in the morning and just wowed you with the way they dove into an idea and chased it all the way down, and they didn't even care about technology except insofar as it advanced their field of study, astronomy, engineering, becoming a seamstress, whatever it was, movie making. You're okay with all that, but good grief, why, when we finally said you can explore the whole wide world, all they wanted to play was Candy Crush on the iPad, right? Has anyone had that moment? Or you say you can watch any movies, any television, and you picture them being curious about their love of birds, and maybe they're now going to watch winged migration and natural history channel for the evolution of birds, right? And instead they're like, I want to watch SpongeBob SquarePants, on repeat. I want to just sit and watch the Disney Channel all day long. Has this happened to anyone besides me? Really? Am I really the only one? Okay, so here's the thing. When you embark on a radically different philosophy of education, your kids are going to react to what you're leaving behind. They don't actually know their way around in this new model yet. And so what they're doing is they are actually relieved because you finally noticed that maybe something you were doing wasn't working, right? So you're like, okay, this wasn't working, so now we're going to try this over here. But they don't know what this over here is because you've already indoctrinated them into the old system. You've already enculturated them into the old system for however long that was, like a month, 6 years, 12 years. And now you're like, oh, I did all this research. I've got this new vision. I really can see what learning is finally. Oh, the angelic choir has visited you and you now know natural learning. And your kids are over here like, oh my gosh, Mom, can I just watch the Disney Channel? Not this again. Now it's all my responsibility to treat myself well and educate myself and go off to college. It's up to me. And you're just sitting there now with bated breath, waiting for evidence that this leap was a good risk. Isn't that what we all do? We're like, I've got this vision. I share it with my children. I create the space for it to happen. And then we're like this. Is it happening? Is it happening? Is it happening? Are they learning? Are they learning? And then we take it all back. Well, if you're not going to use this wonderful opportunity to unschool yourself, I have to make you do math pages, right? And then they're like, yeah, I knew she was bluffing. I knew she didn't really want us to learn naturally. I'm glad I got as much Disney Channel, Minecraft, and Candy Crush in as I did because I knew we were going to be back over here working on those pages, right? This is the psychology. So, a couple principles I want to look at from this idea of staying the course. First of all, before you can stay a course, you have to have a course. And when you are having a course, when you are determining what this new course is going to be, it's really helpful if you feather it in. Do you remember my one thing principle that I shared just a few days ago? Was it a few days ago? I lose track. You can look it up on the blog, One Thing Principle, blog.bravewriter.com. Here's what it is. you get this idea of the thing you want to do, like poetry tea time. Maybe you've never had a poetry tea time, and you're like, I really want to do this. Well, instead of just like waking up in the morning, grabbing the 2 really old, ugly poetry books you have on the shelf and pulling out Lipton tea and paper plates, and then wondering why the whole thing failed, take time. Actually prepare for this experience. Pick a date, shop, catalyze the imaginations of your kids, tell them what's coming. On Thursday, we're going to do this really great thing. Then actually have the experience all together. Set the table, read the books, turn off your phone. Actually inhabit that moment. Schedule no dental appointments. Don't worry if you get another thing done for the rest of the day. Enjoy it. And then when it's over, a week later, reminisce about it. Talk about how great that day was. Do you remember when we read that poem? What was it called again? God, I laughed so hard. Oh, I loved the scones you made. They were so delicious, especially the way that they were pink because you added red dye. You know, like that. Reminisce. And that will catalyze momentum to try again. But don't simply discover this notion of poetry tea time and say, okay, we're going to have these every day now because poetry is important. Don't treat it like it is something that should take over your life. Feather it in. So if we look at something like unschooling or natural learning or brain-based learning, all things I've spoken on, which you can listen to on YouTube, what you want to do is let go of the side of the pool gradually. Don't do a cannonball off the high dive into the pool, okay? Don't say, ha-ha, here I come with a brand new idea. And then you create this huge splash and everybody feels displaced and they don't know what to do. No, let go of the side of the pool. Invite them in. Maybe one day when you see your kids really engaged in something, you call the dentist and cancel the appointment because it's too good watching them play. You just think to yourself, I'm not interrupting that. I'm going to let that keep going. And then you make a snack for what you see happening. You see a child really deeply engaged in building a world in Minecraft, and you think, I'm going to bring a snack and show that I value what's going on right now. And you might just watch him do that for 2 hours and then he's aimless and doesn't know what to do, and all you remember how to do is the stuff you used to do. So you might still say, well, let's sit down and like look through math and think about ways to actually do this work but apply it in a bigger context. And so you do it. But then the next day you're like, well, we did some math yesterday. I'm going to be on the lookout for an opportunity for what we explored yesterday in the traditional program out in our world. Like, how can we take this addition and subtraction that he's still learning in a workbook? How can I expand my categories to include ways it shows up in daily life? That would be a way of wading away from the wall, letting go of the wall and moving towards more confidence in the water. You might still have your feet touching the floor, but you've got to do it baby steps and incrementally. And that's why I say stay the course. Because if you are letting go of the side of the pool slowly, you might be tempted to just turn around and run back and grab it. And if you go in too fast, you might feel like you're drowning. And then you'll blame the pool. But the pool's just sitting there. The pool isn't the problem. It's what you're doing in the pool. Does this make sense? Am I overdoing this analogy? In other words, there are lots of people who've successfully home educated with textbooks, with classical education, with unschooling. There are people who have been successfully educated through private and public schools, through Waldorf, through Charlotte Mason. All the philosophies have their ardent followers, don't they? All the philosophies have produced people who are functional in the world. The pool isn't really the problem. The issue really is what grabs your imagination and creates the catalysts for growth. And that might change, will change over the course of a homeschool lifetime. And you will reevaluate based on what you see showing up in the pool. There may be a time when swimming in the lanes is a really great solution for your family. And then other times when exploration and play is the thing. You know, I interact with a lot of unschoolers because, of course, that's always been the bright, shiny object out there that seems so magical. And it dovetails so much with the way I think about learning for myself. We talked yesterday about the home education journey, how you grow in your own understanding of being a home educator in a natural learning model. Nobody's holding you to some kind of set schedule of tests and essays to prove that you understand home education. You're just immersed, right? So that has always been kind of my underlying philosophy, is that engaged learning, brain-based learning, natural learning is sort of the holy grail, the goal. But I also discovered in my own life how powerful grad school was, where I was not responsible to think of the books to read, where someone did ask me to produce writing in response to lectures that experts gave, and then have it evaluated and commented on to deepen my own growth, because there was only so far I could go alone, and I needed the partnership of experts and even a context that just made it easier for me to enter in a disciplined way. So I want you to hear this. Both can be powerful when they are motivated by a curious mind. Every model you are looking for is all about engaging curiosity and creating a hunger for learning in your children. Mimo is asking, Julie, you may have mentioned this, but what did you do at the end of each school year? I don't know what you mean. Do you mean how did we evaluate the end of each school year? In Ohio, the way it works is this. You can either do state testing, like year-end testing, or you can hire an evaluator, somebody who is a credentialed teacher, and they go over all of the work that you've done with you. It was actually my really good friend, Lisa, who was a homeschooler, who was also a credentialed teacher. And it was my favorite day of the year because I would get my great big crate of books and I would go to her house and I would write my own narratives of each child, like what they had learned, conversations we had, rabbit trails they went on, all the things that they did that I didn't even plan or supervise, field trips. And I would sit down with her and we would just drink tea, eat cookies, and she'd tell me I was awesome. And then she'd give me a whole bunch of resource suggestions. And then I'd go home all tanked up. And I never did testing because I thought testing was stupid. That is my bias. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do testing. And in some states you have to, in which case you should teach to that test and just treat it that way and get back to real education, the kind you're doing with your kids. Corey says, love this. We have been doing Ambleside this year, but my kids missed projects. So, of course, I've been looking at all the new shiny curriculum. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, so here's the thing. If they want something that they currently aren't getting, add it. Feather it in. Bring the one thing principle to bear on your homeschool. Doesn't mean you have to abandon the entire program that's been bringing you joy and comfort. It means there's a little hunger, a little craving, a little curiosity. How can you take that existing structure of Ambleside and find the project within it? That's what I would do. That's how I live. I look at what I've got and then I try to manipulate it into what I want. In fact, if you think about it, this is a little secret tip from writers, professional writers. People who are good at writing know something that people who aren't good at writing don't know. We never write to assignment. You can even give me an assignment in grad school for a magazine to write a book, and I will wriggle my way out of it into the way I want to write about it, and I want to find the part that actually hooks my attention. And I will always find a way. So when I was in grad school, for example, there was one thinker who was particularly interesting to me. And he's the person I wrote my master's thesis on. And literally for 4 years of classes, I found a way to write about him, no matter what the subject was, because that's what I knew I wanted to write about. And I knew that's what I was going to do my thesis on. And I wanted to investigate it in relationship to all of the information I was learning in these classes. Now, he wasn't the only thing I wrote about, but I took advantage of my deep understanding and passion for this one thinker's perspective. and I saw how it was refracted through all that I was learning in the different categories within my field. Does that make sense? So you can do that in homeschool. You're all in on Amble's side, Charlotte Mason, the romantic, gauzy, wonderful, nostalgic past, the books that still have dust on them. You're following this idea of short pieces of reading from a variety of books every day, which I think is lovely. You do copy work and dictation, and you add in poetry tea times, and now your kids want to do projects. Well, why couldn't they? Maybe they can do a project that is related to one of the books you're reading, or Shakespeare, or poetry. And what is a project? Maybe ask them. My idea of a project and what my child thinks is a project may not be the same. Yours might want to make a Minecraft world for a Shakespeare character, right? Like that could be their idea of a project. It doesn't have to be a diorama in a shoebox. But then again, maybe it is. Maybe that's what they're missing is the shoebox, something tactile, something artistic. Maybe they want to make a comic strip for one of the characters in a book they're reading with you. Find out what project means and then see how you can make it dovetail with what you're already doing. Does that make sense? And then here's Nick saying she wished her kids wanted to do projects. Of course. Oh, no, I don't mind. The thinker is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Not everybody knows who that is. He was a Lutheran theologian who was executed by the Nazis at the end of World War II for being a part of a plot to have Hitler assassinated. And I wrote my thesis on letters and papers from prison. Yes. Okay. Karen says, my son has learned so much from his love for monster trucks and Star Wars. Well, of course. Do you remember my other principle? Do you remember it? You can learn everything from anything. You can learn everything through anything. Like that. In other words, my daughter who was into fashion, that's what exploded her writing. It's what exploded her vocabulary, her spelling, her sense of the globe. Because fashion is global and historical. And she learned to sew. And she has an artistic eye. And we were just in Paris together and on the Champs-Élysées, and she knows the designers because she studied them. And there is a depth to her understanding because of that field that I'll never have. And then we go in art museums and she's equally fascinated because she has an eye for art. Do you get it? You can use any subject area. If you just chase it down, this is the attractiveness of unschooling or natural learning. It's recognizing that no topic is off limits in your education. That's really the foundation of those points of view. No topic is off limits if you are looking to grow as an educated person. They all contribute. Tiffany says, Harvey didn't read it all until he discovered sports comedy books. Well, you all must know that I am such a massive sports fan. And I think sports writers are among the best writers on the planet. And in fact, just last week, I think my boyfriend was telling me that he just read an article and he sent it to me. And it was all about why sports writers are the top of the line in journalism. And it literally just recounted everything I say. And here is what I say about sports writers. They take a game we all know how to play, that we all watched last night, that we know the ending of, already know how it turned out, and they write an article that is compelling to read. I mean, literally, if you stayed up last night through the 10th inning and watched the Cubs win the World Series, why would you read a newspaper article about it? You already know how the game is played, you watched the game, and you know how it turned out. So the keys of good storytelling have already played out, and now you're going to write about it? Well, guess what a sports writer does? He helps you relive the experience through giving you a window of insight into that game that you did not observe. He tells you a story that is embedded in the experience and event that you just witnessed. And he does it through bringing in pop culture and analogies and little known facts about the individual players and what the manager was thinking at key points in the game that informed decisions he made, right? Sports writers have to be the most powerful writers because they are dealing with material the audience already knows. So they have to dig deep to pull out information and make it compelling to read. So yeah, no wonder your son loves reading sports comic books. I mean, they're incredible. It's fantastic. Ashley says, my son struggled so bad with reading until we got a box set of phonics Star Wars books. He read every one of them more than once. Yep, totally. In fact, one of my best friend's sons was a very late reader. He didn't read until he was 11, I think. And yet, I have pictures of him reading Tan comic books with my daughter Johanna when they were both younger, when he was like 9 and she was like 5. And they were always paging through comic books, reading together. Well, at the time, Jurassic Park was the big movie, and he really wanted to see it. He was 11 years old. And his mom was a little nervous about Jurassic Park as a movie for him to watch at that age. But they were at the library, and on the new bookshelf, there was a Jurassic Park book that was comic book style, that was retelling the story of the movie. And so this mom checked the book out for her son. And she said to him, once you've read this book, I'll take you to the movie. And he was so committed to wanting to go to that movie, he finally just drilled down and worked through every word on the page of this book. And that was his breakthrough in reading. But up to that point, the motivation wasn't there. It wasn't even that he couldn't read. It was more like, why? I can look through comic books and get enough out of them. I don't want to work that hard to try and figure out these words. But suddenly, the thought of seeing a movie that had so grabbed his imagination was on the table. And that book brought him in. Katrin, when she finally learned to read, she read a magazine article in People magazine about Jessica Simpson and her breakup from Nick Lachey. And we live in Cincinnati, so that was a big deal. And she just wanted to know what had happened, and she forced herself to read all of these big words to find out what happened with them. So you got to know that not every problem that presents itself is about skills and learning disabilities. A lot of it is also the want to, the lever that leads to a meaningful relationship with the subject area. And sometimes for kids in reading, it has to be meaningful. Those Bob books are awful. Yes, they teach the phonics, but my gosh, poke my eyes out. They're so boring. So you sometimes are waiting for that moment, that key, that lever. And as a parent, stay the course. Keep making offers. Pay attention. Be interested. Show curiosity. Partner. Offer new materials. Create connections. Send links. Do things that let your kids know you're on their team. You're not their heavy-duty taskmaster. Let's see. Tammy says, this is my second child, a girl. She can read, but isn't always motivated. I watched her read out loud to her brother a Halloween book. Motivation is huge, yes. And a lot of kids are learning to read by reading to their pets or their stuffed animals or their dolls, because low risk. There's no mother hovering over you, making sure you are reading every word and that you don't skip any and that you're sounding them all out. Doesn't that sound awful? I would hate that. Maybe create a cozy reading corner with all their favorite stuffed animals and put all the fun books to read in a lovely basket, and then bring snacks and ignore your child for a while. Let reading discover your child instead of the other way around. Heather says, it's always so hard to know when to hold something in front as a reward when learning is involved. For me, it's always been hard to know. Don't think of reward. This was not about reward like, if you do this, I'll give you a treat. Her son wanted to see Jurassic Park. This mother was worried about her son seeing that movie. She realized if he read the story together, even if she had read it to him, they'd have a better sense of whether he could handle the film. But what she realized is this book turned out to be at his reading level. And so she brought it home, and in a conversation, she's like, well, once you've read the book, let's go see Jurassic Park. Not, you need to learn to read. I am setting up a reward program to make sure it happens. Do you see there's a difference here? It has the same look, but it's not the same. It's not the same. This all came from a parent who was paying attention to what was going on with her kid and how to make a meaningful relationship between what he was interested in and the reading he needed to do. But that is very different than rewards. I think sometimes what we're trying to do is leverage when we use rewards. We're saying, how can I get my child to do this thing I want him to do by giving him something I think he wants? But that's not effective, not long term. They'll get sick of the rewards. I mean, how many cookies can you offer? They have to actually want to read. You cannot reward them just into reading. So the key is finding the thing that is a rewarding read, right? It's a rewarding read to read about Jurassic Park if you're dying to see the movie. That's totally different. It's a rewarding read to read about Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey's breakup if those are two people you're really excited about and you don't know what happened. Do you see the difference? Let's see. Yeah, one of the things that I do know is for some kids, rewards seem to work or they work temporarily. So I'll tell you this. I remember Noah, when he was young, was working through this one math book. And I knew that he understood the math concepts, but I didn't yet have confidence to tell him he didn't have to finish the book. Do you guys ever have that experience? So I was worried that he needed to finish this book, but what he was doing is he was dragging his feet because he already understood everything in the book. So I set up this goal. I said, all right, well, if you finish this book, however long it takes you, I'll buy you a video game. Okay, so I want you to hear this. This is a reward structure I set up for Noah. And I imagine now he was going to happily complete the pages in this book over the rest of the school year. And at the end of the school year, I'd buy him the game. When I set this reward system up, it was November. Okay, so we have 6 months ahead of us before school's going to be over. Noah did the entire book in a weekend. In a weekend. I literally didn't even have the money to buy the game yet because we were really broke back then and games were $50 and I didn't have 50 spare dollars handy to go buy him a game. So I had to take it from, the grocery money and buy him this game to hold up my end of the deal. And then guess what? He didn't want to do anything else related to math for months because he had used up all his math energy to get a game. And he did it all in a weekend. And it was stuff he already knew how to do. So he had learned how to bore himself for a reward. What a disaster. That had the exact opposite effect of everything I was trying to achieve. And rewards never worked again with Noah. I got one reward out of him for the rest of his life. He didn't care. You couldn't motivate him by paying him extra computer time, going to a concert. There was nothing you could do to get that child to do something you wanted him to do because he had already discovered it was a trick. And Noah hates being tricked. Right? You see? Now, working toward a goal, that's a little different. Johanna loved working toward a goal. She wanted an American Girl doll. Like I said, we had no money. I told her, well, you can save money and I'll help you think of ways to earn money, from family or neighbors. Not for me. I didn't have any money. So earning it for me would have felt false. But we found ways for her to earn money and we got there was a sticker puzzle back in the day at American Girl. And each time you hit a certain financial amount, you got to put a sticker on and it slowly made a picture of a doll. And Johanna loved that because that's her temperament. She likes patience. Saving. She's still the most frugal person I've ever met, knows how to make money last, knows how to make money. She's amazing. That was her strategy for getting an American Girl doll. She was so successful at it, she did it again. It took her a year each time to get $100 to buy that doll. And I didn't contribute a penny. And in fact, the last $20, she found a $20 bill on the ground in our cul-de-sac. Because kids like that, magic happens. Because that's what she was about. She was on this path of reaching a goal. But that's so different than a reward. I didn't say, well, if you fill in all these pages, I'll buy you a doll. She wanted the doll. We found a way to get it. Heather says, so looking back, how would you have handled the math book saga differently with Noah? Well, we would have stopped the math book. He already understood all the concepts. We would have moved on to more challenging material so math would stay interesting. But I didn't know that yet. I thought you had to do the whole book. I thought that he had to have practice and not miss any of these categories. What Noah needed around math is what he has provided for himself the rest of his life, which is really, really, really hard problems that no one knows how to solve. And he does it when I'm not around, in the dark of his bedroom on a computer with people that understand math that I don't understand. That's how Noah grew in math. And today, he's programming Python. And he told me yesterday when we were on the phone together that it's the most demanding, challenging job he's ever had, and he loves it. Can't wait to get to it every day because it's so freaking hard and the problems are so real. Would you even use a book if you could go back? Maria, for me, one of the benefits of a book is that I don't even know the language of the categories for math. So yeah, I would have a book, but it would probably be with Noah for me. It wouldn't be for Noah. I would use the tool to help me stay engaged with where he was growing. Now with my younger kids, I didn't have any problems using a math book. I needed it. It's just not my strength. I did a little webinar yesterday with Maria from Natural Math, and I realized while I was preparing, I couldn't even think of the vocabulary I needed to be able to produce the poem I was going to model. That's how much math vocabulary is still not a part of me. And so when you're in a category like that, you want to find resources. So I used Family Math. I used books online, websites online. I did use some textbooks that I usually hated because I couldn't understand them, and there was no Mr. Saxon to call on the phone and ask, well, I don't understand this page. I used a tutor. One of my best friends here in the homeschooling community is a math junkie, and so we swapped. I taught her kids writing, she taught my kids math. So those are ways that I engaged math. We used books like Murderous Maths. Do you guys know those? Those are hilariously funny. We used Math Curse and Science Verse, which is a poetry book. We did games, we did puzzles, we used secret codes. I mean, when I look back, I had so much anxiety around math that I did everything I knew how to try and address it. And apparently, according to Maria, that's what you're supposed to do. We did tangrams, we did computer games, we did computer programming, we played tabletop games, we played guards, right? And we also taught the facts. We did. We taught how to add and subtract and divide and multiply and use fractions and percents and decimal points. And then around high school math, I farmed it out because I literally am not good enough to do Algebra 1. So I had to have help for Algebra 1 all the way through calculus. That was not on me. And that's how I did math. I'm not recommending that, by the way. I am recommending the farming it out. Yes, I thought that was brilliant. What I'm saying is that is not a plan that I hope you'll all copy. I'm telling you, homeschooling is solving the problem over and over again. And when you get a new idea, stay the course long enough to experience it, to see how it works for you. Make sense? Yeah, Murderous Maths with an S on the end. Those books are hilarious. They're perfect for like junior high level, and they're written, I think, in Britain. That's why it says maths. And so they have like this humorous story, and it's like a jailbreak, and you have to use math to do all of these exits. They're very funny. Some of my kids didn't enjoy them just because they were like, no, I'm not interested in being entertained. I just want to do the work. But then I had other kids who really loved them. I loved them because every time I got a new tool, I understood math a little better. And for me, that was exciting. Dolores says, my daughter, Holly, has dyslexia. She learned to read during her 3rd grade year. I gave her a love for books because I had a love for books within my heart. That is so great. And she made up her own stories. See, that's perfect. That's perfect. All right, well, guess what? We went extra long today, and I've got a long, full day of work ahead. So, to recap, you can get the first 5 readings for free if you click on the link that's posted with this broadcast. The spring semester schedule, all the classes for spring are now on the Brave Writer website. You can get there by clicking on the home page and then Brave Writer program and going to online classes. Take a look around. The registration date is December 5th, which is a Monday. We open it at noon Eastern, and be prepared because we sold out so many classes the first day in August, and spring is going to be bigger. There's no question in my mind. Another piece is Melissa Wiley, noted children's author, is going to be teaching 2 brand new classes, Comic Strip Capers and Penning the Past, which is how to write an autobiographical narrative from within the viewpoint of a historical figure. Okay? Oh yes, and then lastly, if you were interested in coaching and you want to be a part of our community, my coaching community, where we help you grow as a home educator, check out the Homeschool Alliance at CoachJulieBogart.com. This month, we are talking about how emotions are critical to the learning experience, and we're looking at ways to include sports in our lives on all different levels so that our kids have a physical education, not just a cerebral one. Thanks everybody for joining me. I will see you tomorrow morning back at our usual time at 8 a.m. Bye. Live honestly, write bravely. I'm Julie Bogart from Brave Writer.